Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the February 27, 2022 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media. You can catch all you need through the Boxing Source through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we do have the YouTube channel that has interviews and different takes on what goes on in the sport of boxing. We got a few things here that we're going to be talking about as they had a lot of action, you know, a lot of action that went down, you know, over the weekend. Of course, headlined by the undisputed super lightweight title fight that did take place over in Glasgow. And also, we had action over in Las Vegas. And it was really a surprising result for some in that particular main event in that card over in Las Vegas. But we're going to go over what went down over in Glasgow, as you had Josh Taylor going up against Jack Catterall for the undisputed super lightweight titles. Of course, Josh Taylor, undisputed champ, undefeated, had defeated Jose Ramirez to become undisputed champion. He had two of the belts. Um, while Jose Ramirez had the two other belts, WBC, WBO, and they had fought in Las Vegas over at the what was that, like the Virgin Hotels over in Las Vegas. Some a fairly small venue, almost like a uh, club fight type of atmosphere there, where Josh Taylor was able to score a knockdown on Jose Ramirez en route to a decision win. Back then, it pretty much was, I would say in a sense, a close bout where the knockdown served as the difference in the fight. And you know, Josh Taylor had celebrated as the undisputed champ, and he had his one of his mandatory defenses to honor, and that was against Jack Catterall. At this particular point, he had to, honor that mandatory, or at least for that particular belt, there with Jack Catterall serving as the mandatory challenger. And Jack Catterall was the mandatory challenger there for the WBO. So Jack Catterall was their mandatory WBO 26-0. Um, you know, hadn't really been all too, you know, um, they say impressive to some, but he was somebody that was a boxer in the sense that he could, showcase his skills and everything like that, and that type of thing. Sorry, it is on the live stream. I'm actually I'm actually looking at the rack box rack, and I'm familiar with the one of the people that runs box rack. I'm putting this on wax. Hey, I'm familiar with one of the people that runs the website, and I'm looking on the page, and they posted, as far as like the ratings go, they have Vasily Lomachenko profiled as the guy, and the picture they have for Vasily Lomachenko. Man, I'm gonna get that man for posting this, because I know he's responsible for posting that stuff. Man, I can't believe he did that. But all right, back at it. Back at it. Jack Catterall. Let's talk about Jack Catterall. He was coming into the fight 26-0 with 13 of those wins by way of knockout. Josh Taylor had a record of 18-0. Like I said, he was the undisputed, the undisputed super lightweight champion. And, going into this particular fight, you know, um, I did not expect much from Jack Catterall. I had, predicted ahead of time that Josh Taylor would outwork him, and he would, eventually stop Jack Catterall. But man, oh man, oh man, we, or at least those who saw this particular bout, it was on, ESPN Plus, part of a top rank, presentation and whatnot. Man, we saw a performance, or at least to me, man, we saw a performance from Jack Catterall in this particular instance, man. I mean, I had to, tip my hat off to Jack Catterall in this particular bout. He showed up. You know what? He showed up. He showed up and he showed out. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. Josh Taylor, was doing what he usually does in his fights. He'll come forward, he'll attack in a sense, he'll come forward, he'll attack in a sense, and then he'll come up close and then try to outwork you up close. But the thing here was Jack Catterall was down to get dirty in the trenches. But not only was he down to get dirty in the trenches, he was really throwing the jab in his left hand there with pretty good precision, in comparison to what Josh Taylor was doing. What Josh Taylor was doing when he was throwing the jab, he was coming forward with the jab and coming forward so much that he didn't have much of a choice but to be in in clinches with Jack Catterall, or be up so close that he really couldn't throw his power shot. All he could do is just throw body shots on the inside, try to, get in with the hook with the left. And, outside of that, we, or at least I, didn't really see much there from, Josh Taylor that really said that he had, um, a polished performance. You know what I mean? For me, I thought that, Josh Taylor had smothered a lot of his work. I thought he smothered a lot of the work that he had over the course of the 12 rounds. Okay. And I really didn't see much where he was very effective in what he was doing. Okay. On the flip side, Jack Catterall, very poised, very calm. Like I said, wasn't really phased on, what Josh Taylor was doing. And, the other thing was that Jack Catterall with his jab, I felt like he was more consistent with his jab, more consistent with his power hand. If I'm not mistaken, you're going as a southpaw in Taylor, and he was facing another southpaw in Jack Catterall. And Jack Catterall looked like he was more prepared to fight a southpaw than Josh Taylor was. Now, I could go over, some, intangibles or whatnot when it comes to Josh Taylor and other things that may have been going on. I'll go through that a little bit, down the road. But going through these particular rounds, outside of, the roughhousing, some would say, that people feel like Josh Taylor does to a certain extent. He may roughhouse a little bit, but, at other times he has instances where he looks pretty good when it comes to boxing or, trying to box. But he only did that in a couple spurts in previous fights. For me, with his boxing ability was the difference in him being able to defeat Jose Carlos Ramirez for those undisputed titles. But he didn't really do that here in this bout against Jack Catterall. He didn't, try to, bounce around the ring, move around, try to jab and then move side to side and things like that. We saw that from Jack Catterall. We saw that from Jack Catterall. Josh Taylor smothered a lot of his work, and you kind of seen where it was a lot of compromising positions where the tie-ups were often, and that the punches kind of ended up behind the head in some cases, or fighters were ducking down before the clinch happened. Okay, but halfway through the fight, I pretty much felt like Jack Catterall was looking pretty good, and then then with a good combination and a good left hand that caught Josh Taylor went down to one knee, and I was like, ooh, man. Ooh, we got something going here, right? And then later on down the line, the referee took a point away from Jack Catterall. I'm like, come on, man. Why in the world would you take a point away from Jack Catterall in this particular instance when Jack Catterall had came forward, and when he came forward, Josh Taylor had dipped down so far down that where he was, you didn't really have a choice but to either hit Josh Taylor behind the head or have a instance where he gets hit fairly low in the head or whatever it is. So the referee had taken a point from Jack Catterall, which pretty much nullified at the time, I guess, the knockdown that he had scored earlier in the fight. But then we've seen what was going on in the 10th, 11th, and 12th. At the end of the 10th, you saw that Josh Taylor had a point taken away because he threw a punch to Jack Catterall's body after the bell rang. So he had a point taken away. Last two rounds, you've seen both fighters try to get, the advantage. Josh Taylor was doing what he usually does. Jack Catterall was staying poised, calm, started landing left hand counters, landed left uppercuts, was sharper with the jab, and that happened in the 11th and the 12th round. Then we go to the scorecards. You have one scorecard in favor of Jack Catterall. Then you had two scorecards in favor of Josh Taylor, for Josh Taylor to retain the undisputed super lightweight championships. And I'm like, come on, man. That didn't happen. If y'all, check the YouTube page, I pretty much had a video immediately after it where I pretty much said that Josh Taylor got cooked. Now, I'm going to try to get more people involved in the conversation. I want to introduce one of our longtime contributors. You know what it is. It's the Boxing Academic checking in here real quick. The Boxing Academic's in the building. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, JR? How you doing today?
All good, man. All good. Getting a few things done.
Oh yeah. So I'm just checking in. I'm taking a break from this paper I gotta write while I'm eating. So I at least wanted to pop my head in. I didn't watch this fight because it was on earlier in the day, and I was trying to write this paper, so I didn't see it. I just only saw sort of the highlights. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna, entrust you, but I did watch those fights later in the day.
right?
Yeah.
And like I was saying with the scorecards, um, Howard Foster had scored about 113, 112 in favor of Jack Catterall. And then you had Ian John Lewis scored about 114, 111, and Victor Laughlin scored about 113, 112 in favor of Josh Taylor. Now, like a couple hours after the bout, um, I had seen the scorecards, and the thing that stood out to me about the scorecards was that from rounds 9 through 12, like every judge had each round in favor of Josh Taylor. Um, And for me, I just did not feel like Josh Taylor won all 4 rounds, especially with the last two being how they were. Because, like I said, with Jack Catterall, he was sharper with his punches. He didn't smother his work. He was, on point with his jab, but also he was on point with his counters, and the left uppercut was really scoring on Josh Taylor, especially in the 11th and 12th rounds. Now, you might have had a little bit less activity from Jack Catterall in the first half of those rounds, but the way that he responded, with better overall work in comparison to Josh Taylor for me. So I just felt like Jack Catterall pulled off this particular bout, and I thought that he should have been able to get the nod there, so that you know you would have had a new undisputed champion. But at this particular instance, they did not award the fight to the guy that most likely should have been the victor. And the immediate reaction was like uproar, people, kind of like saying, hey, Catterall got robbed. He should have been able to get this particular fight. Um, you had like, I think it was like a promoter that was involved with it saying like he was very disappointed with this result, that, Catterall should have been able to earn this win and become, world champion. And the thing about it is that, with the situation that kind of like followed, was that one, you don't have the instance where the fighter uh, would have been able to be in position to have a rematch. I mean, once you're a mandatory challenger, either you win and you win the belt, and that's that. But in this case, with Taylor being a unified in this or undisputed champion, yeah, Josh Taylor could lose, but being that he holds other belts, he could have had the option to have a rematch with Jack Catterall. But Jack Catterall losing, he doesn't have that instance there. Um, yeah, going into live discussion, yeah, Boxing Learner in the building says, the fight was, horrible with a lot of holding. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And I think for me, it was Josh Taylor that kind of like incited a lot of that, because like when I was saying at the beginning, Josh Taylor, when he was throwing his jab, he was throwing the right jab. It wasn't like he was set throwing his jab. He would come forward, throw the jab, and when he came forward so much, he was already right in Jack Catterall before he could even do anything. And it almost was like he wanted to get to that particular point, because that's usually how he kind of like goes. He kind of like tries to come forward, then works the body, moves around a little bit to tie up the opponent, throw some punches, tie up the opponent, throw some more punches, and then get out of the pocket. But in this particular instance, it was like his work wasn't really as sharp as it was in, a few of the other fights that he's had, maybe like against a Regis Prograis, or other fighters. And yeah, Catterall was sharper in this particular bout. In comparison to Josh Taylor, when he was throwing his jab coming forward, and then, like I said, tying up. Jack Catterall was throwing his jab, and he was stationary. Jab, bam, bam. And then he would just stay there and go bam, and then come through with the left. Bam, bam. Well, then come in with the left uppercut, So I just felt like Jack Catterall was a lot more precise. And I mean, we've seen it in the punch, in the punch stats or whatever it is, but you kind of like seen it live that he was a lot more precise with his punches in comparison to Josh Taylor. And you're talking about the referee who was Marcus McDonald. That's what I'm looking at over there, Marcus McDonald, right? Shaking it. Yeah, that ref was horrible, man. That ref was horrible. Like, he didn't really, enforce his authority in unless if it was selective, because we've seen that Josh Taylor was very active or trying to clinch and trying to tie up and kind of like slowing down the action a lot, where you see Jack Catterall was very composed and not trying to muck up the fight. And in his particular instance with him, kind of like when I'm talking about Taylor, him, kind of like mucking up the fight, it just made it tough for Jack Catterall to really work on his things. And during the fight, when I was seeing Jack Catterall land and he was causing the cuts on Josh Taylor, I said, man, listen. If Jack Catterall had any type of power behind those punches in this particular instance, then he would have really put a hurting on Josh Taylor. I want to add in another guest here that's joining in the live conversation. The Boxing Outsider is in the building. What's going on, man? Been a minute.
Oh, yeah, man. We just had some good fights last night.
Yeah, good number of good fights. Kind of breaking down the main events here. First off with the Taylor Catterall, man, and like you said, man, you said fight was horrible with the holding and the referee was kind of like allowing all that holding to happen.
Yeah, but he also dropped Josh, and I thought at first I thought he slipped, but then they did a replay. I'm like, whoa, he actually dropped Josh Taylor.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. From there, I thought they, because he dropped him and he had all those other rounds, I think they should have just gave it to him. And like, because honestly, Josh smothered almost all his work in the late rounds too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With the exception of maybe one of the last four rounds, I really felt like it was Jack Catterall that kind of like took himself over. And I know, and there were like some fans that were saying, or I think one fighter or commentator was on social media saying that you would have to that he had to close it out in order to get the win, and he didn't do that. I'm like, wait a minute, yes, he did. He was sharper. He was landing bigger and better power shots. And you kind of like seen that he was the one in control of what was going on in the ring. When they talk about like ring generalship, yeah, he was the one that was kind of like controlling what was going on in this particular fight, and that it was more of like Josh Taylor reacting to what Jack Catterall had done over the course of those previous rounds, and even with, Josh Taylor trying to get himself back into it, it wasn't really enough to me for him to like get really back into the fight. But for some reason, all three judges gave rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12 to Josh Taylor. And that was crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I just couldn't really, fathom how they came up with that. Shout out, man. I got another guest here. This should be Brother Marcus from Ohio, runs boxing. Checking in here real quick. What's going on?
What's good, man? What's good?
Yo, what's happening, man? Taylor Catterall, man. Man, listen. Like I was saying immediately after the fight, man, Taylor got cooked.
Yeah. He did, man. That was crazy. It was crazy. I was actually kind of upset because I've been telling people I don't like defending undisputed. I've never been a fan of it. You get all the belts. I don't think nobody in the division is worth you defending 4 titles. And people say, "Oh, what? Really?" No. It's like I use the Marvel. I don't know if y'all big on Marvel, but I am. Thanos collected all the stones, right? He went individually everywhere. He even sacrificed the loved one for a stone, right? So he gets all these stones going different places, right? And you mean to tell me the superheroes come out of nowhere and just come and take it from him? Absolutely not. That's the reason why they had to go back in the time machine to make it so, because it was realistic. He earned that. He went and got those individuals. And so when I look at it from a boxing perspective, when you got 4 belts and you know you're about to drop them, why are you fighting a top guy 26-0? If you want to take a tune-up, fight somebody that's got 9-13 losses, cool. If you want to fight home, I get it. But I think the matchmakers made a big mistake when you want to defend undisputed against a guy who I truly didn't think deserved it. I know people don't like hearing that, but he just didn't. You got to be able, if you're going to drop the belts, and that's one of the reasons why I think Jack was he was robbed in this situation, because he did win the fight, but they wasn't going to give it to him. You know, Josh already has plans to move up to 147, and you know, to pretty much, he's in the same situation Crawford was with when he was a top rank. He's not really a star. You know, he had 4 belts. No one really cared. So he's in a situation where he's trying to boost his stock. So now he's trying to, you know, fight Crawford. It just didn't make that fight that much sexy. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it look good when you have a performance like that. Now, I'm still a fan of Josh. I like Josh Taylor. And I'm real big on, you know, they look bad doesn't mean that they're going to look bad in the next fight. I just think Crawford is just so many levels above him. You can just see it. You know what I mean? You can just see it. So it's not, you can't really get mad at certain people that don't like the fight because of what they saw from Josh Taylor. But I'm just real big on that. We can't pick and choose when to give a fighter credit for having an off night. Jermell Charlo didn't look good against Monty, or if I said his name right, where he went 12 rounds. He beat him, but he didn't look that good against him. You get what I'm saying? And people's yeah, they still think Canelo ducking him, right? But we seen him go the distance with guys Canelo probably wouldn't go the distance with. You know what I mean? So we got to be able to do that with everybody, man. Isaac Cruz, who was supposed to get dominated by Tank, he looked good, and people praised him. Oh, he's a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? So we pick and choose. I think Jack is decent. I think he's probably, you know, I don't know too much about him. Who Josh fight. Well, he has to fight more, but we got to give him enough credit too that he came to fight. He was 26-0. You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion on that, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, you know, like you were saying there at the beginning in reference to Josh Taylor, you know, being an undisputed champion, and you know, it's kind of difficult to, you know, have the particular instance where you hold an undisputed title, because once you get it, then you have to go through that whole cycle of, okay, I got to face this mandatory. I got to face another mandatory if I beat him. And then after I beat him, then I got to face another mandatory. You know, that even happens when you have more than 2 titles. So in this particular instance, you are going to have to face one mandatory in Jack Catterall. And then after that, you would have probably had to face another mandatory, probably for the IBF, and then another one for WBC, and then WBA, and that whole and then it would rotate again. Not only that, but you know, I had posted at one particular point where there was like an article about, you know, him being an undisputed champion, and when you're undisputed champion or a champion, regardless, you got to pay a percentage to the sanctioning body for holding the belt. And so with him being an undisputed champion, he had to pay up to 11% of his purse for fighting Jack Catterall. So that's like, you know, paying off over $100,000 or $110,000 if his purse was $1 million.
Right.
So that's absolutely a little chunk. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of like, you know, has me going back to years back when you had, of course, you had in the welterweight division, you had way back Corey Spinks had the undisputed title. He eventually lost to Zab Judah, right? Zab Judah eventually lost to, a guy, his name Carlos. Y'all know who he is. I'm not going to say his full name because of what he did, but
Yeah.
because that guy was able to win the title, because of the amount of money that he was getting paid for it, he wasn't going to keep all of those titles. That's why all of those titles were split up,
Yep.
because at one particular point, they can't really, afford all of those. So, like you see in the instance with, hey, Canelo Alvarez, at least for now, moving up. But Terrence Crawford, after he became undisputed champion 140, immediately moved up. Other fighters do the same thing. I mean, look at Alexander Usyk defended the cruiserweight title once before he moved up to heavyweight. But you still don't see like an undisputed champion defending their titles more than once, if that. So you do have that particular instance there. Want to add in another guest here checking in, brother Jamil in the building. What's happening? We see, man, Jamil, you in there?
He got cooked.
Let me tell you something, man. He got his ass cooked. He got cooked.
He wasn't the only one that got cooked last night. Man, look. Woo! In all seriousness, he got outboxed. He looked bad. And it wasn't that, like, people talked about the weight. And yeah, I believe the weight played a factor, but the weight ain't got nothing to do with you not coming in behind your jab. The weight has nothing to do with his game plan. His game plan was poor. He smothers his work. He throws one punch and smothers his work. He doesn't really land clean shots. And I think it was because Catterall was moving. He looked really good against Jose Ramirez, who comes forward. Doesn't move, comes forward. But now you add a moving target, and they say you can tell a lot about a southpaw and how good he is by how he looks against another southpaw.
Yep.
Southpaw are used to defending against certain punches. And when they face another southpaw, everything's on the table, and it showed.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen Josh Hedler get hit with left hooks. He get hit with left uppercuts on multiple occasions over the course of the fight. And you had Ben Davison. You had Ben Davison over the course of the fight. Man, he didn't really teach him nothing. He was in the corner. He was trying to hype up the crowd. He was like, "Yeah, let's go. Yeah." I'm like, "Yo, you didn't tell Josh Taylor nothing about adjusting to the left hand. Nothing about that counter was coming through by Jack Catterall. Nothing about trying to flip from being a brawler to a boxer and try to set stuff up." I'm like, man, you allowed Josh Taylor to get cooked by Jack Catterall. And remember, going into this fight, Josh Taylor, not only was, the undisputed super lightweight champion, but a good number of people kind of like felt like he was teetering around that 5 or 6 spot in the pound for pound rankings. Shoot, I think some people that are favorable put him at around like 4 or something like that. You know what I mean? But here, man, he didn't look that good at all. And like you were saying there, Jamil, the whole thing about the weight is one thing, but that's like the day before. All you got to do the day before is make weight. After that, you get to rehydrate. You get to eat all that type of stuff. Within the rules, if you want to follow the IBF's rules, cool. You want to just gain only 10 pounds, cool. But outside of that, you could get yourself back up to a weight where you feel comfortable at. And so Josh Taylor, he could have had that chance to rehydrate himself or get himself back up to a weight where he kind of like felt he was comfortable. But still, all that doesn't matter if you ain't really able to perform there in the ring. And he really did not perform that well in the ring in comparison to what Jack Catterall was doing. So that was just a bad look for him, man. And but 2 judges still gave him the fight. And it was just a bad break there for Jack Catterall. But he's going to, be having a much bigger stock in this particular instance. And I think that people are going to be looking out for him here in the near future. Now,
I mean, I think he deserves a vacant title shot against, I ain't going to say a turkey, but a very winnable fight. They have to make that up. The business of boxing kept Josh Taylor undefeated because of potential fights.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Taylor showed he's not ready for 147 pounds or the elite fighter at 147 pounds. I would favor Kell Brook, dudes like that, against him, honestly.
Mm. Yeah, it's something because, after this fight, he did made the announcement that he's moving up to 147. And with that being said, all of those titles will be vacated. And it just depends on what happens here. I think but this type of timing is pretty key because if I'm not mistaken, in the following weekend, don't we have Jose Ramirez going into battle?
Yeah, he's Jose Pedraza, right?
Yeah, it should be Pedraza there. So, that's going to be a pretty interesting bout.
Hey James, I got a comment on Josh Taylor and all them.
All right.
And it sort of relates to Terrence Crawford a bit. Those guys at 140, where you have the belts every year, 6 months, get to an undisputed status. It's a reason why that's happening. Because that crop of guys ain't that good, man. I ain't watched the fight, but, I ain't want to take away the dude accolades because, that's a formidable thing to do, but you got Ndongo and, people like that. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not bad, but the reason why people are able to be undisputed so quickly is because the crop of guys in that group aren't that good.
And Ndongo was unified champion of the world. Oh, my God.
Yeah. He was a unified champ. That's right. He was
the boxing academic. Have you ever seen a unified champion worse than Julius Ndongo? The boxing academic. Can you answer that for me, please?
Well, not until they acquired CTE when they should not have been fighting. But up until that point, I don't think he had that point to where he got like a lot of brain damage to where we all know that he should be stopping fighting. So no, I don't think I've seen the worst one. But my boxing knowledge could increase on that one. I'm sure there's one. There could be one worse. In all of history, there could be one worse.
That's for the panel. Can you name a worse unified champion than Julius Ndongo? Go.
You got me thinking. I gotta think, man. I gotta think. It's a great question.
It's a great question. Yo, that's gonna be posted. Like, is there a worse unified champion than Julius?
Even his story, just what he did was just still amazing because he won those titles in the backyard. Both backyards, man. That's not easy to do. So you got to give guys credit, for going to do that because that wasn't easy to beat. He beat the Russian, and then he went and fought Ricky Burns. Ricky Burns got a couple robberies down there. Let's be honest, man. Ricky was, he had some fixed fights down there where he was getting the decisions he should have lost. So, and Ndongo came down there and got that. He got that. But I think
he got a sweep on one of those cards too.
Yeah. So I think you got to give him credit for that. But back to what he was saying though, when he was talking about the division, the reason why they became undisputed is because the talent barrier ain't that good. No, I disagree. I think it's more about the names. See, the problem is some of us get so caught up in promoting names. So when you recognize a guy and you see him most of the time, you think he has the goods because of the way he's being matched on television. These guys become undisputed fast because they can make fights with guys that are not stars. As soon as they get names and become stars, or people start to know them, the fights become hard to make. That's why the Clarissa Shields can be undisputed. The Usyks can be undisputed. It's not that because they're not fighting good competition. You know, they're not fighting horrible competition because they're fighting people who are decent, just don't have the names. You know what I mean? So these
Not
fights,
names, it's a lot easier to make. Like you're saying.
absolutely. The moment, and I told people that when 135 start, y'all start talking about Ryan Garcia, Tank, and Devin, all these names. I said the fights aren't going to get made. Y'all naming too many people.
So I think that's actually a great point that you mentioned in terms of, the name and how tough the fights get made. But just because that is true, I'm going to go so far to say that what you're saying is true. Just because that's true doesn't mean that what I'm saying ain't true either, which is them crop of guys, if you compare them to other pools of people, they aren't that good. Like, if Danny Garcia could make 140, he probably could beat all them guys.
I disagree.
Most of them, 90% of them. How about that?
You can. It depends because I'm big on styles. I don't care about your name. When people was talking about Crawford need to fight one of the 4 horsemen, he need to fight, on PBC. I think he easily beats Danny Garcia.
You think?
Yes.
Wait, stop.
Yes.
You think that Danny Garcia wouldn't have its way with the current crop? Remember, we talking about prime day. We talking about Danny wouldn't have its way with the 140s today.
Let me tell you why. I don't think so. Let me tell you why. Because he has a kryptonite that's been exploded. Mauricio Herrera boxed his head off. Those guys, Victor Posto can move. Victor Posto can box. Let's not just talk about what he did last night and that crazy stoppage.
No, Victor Postol's 38 years old, so I don't. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying, but I'm talking about when the time he dropped the belt not to fight. I'm not saying he was scared or anything like that. It was a great business move for him to drop that belt and move up to 147. But Victor Posto would have gave Danny Garcia problems at 140 because of the styles, not the names. It's the style.
Yeah. Giving somebody problems doesn't mean that you'll win that fight. Like,
that you'll beat them.
If we gonna keep it a big, right? Victor Postol's claim to fame is breaking Lucas Matisse's orbital bone. Danny Garcia boxed his head off. So I know it's not a triangle theory, but
I was waiting for you. I was wondering. I was like, okay.
No. I'm just saying, don't act like Victor Postol's ever done something that Danny Garcia can't do, or Danny Garcia's done more.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the styles. I'm not getting into that. That's not what I said. I'm talking about style.
But you can't completely negate that. You're correct. The style would give him problems, but you can't completely negate that. I can't think of the overarching thing we're trying to say here, but you can't negate the other part of it. I get what you're saying about the styles. I agree with
what y'all saying is he'd just wipe out half of the people, and I'm like, when it comes to matchmaking, that's not how it's done.
Okay,
you got to actually fight the fight.
Danny Garcia versus Regis Prograis. Go ahead.
You said Danny Garcia versus Regis Prograis?
He's giving you the top guys right now too. He giving you the top guys too. He ain't giving you the worst one.
Danny Garcia versus Regis Prograis. Go ahead.
I like Danny in that fight.
Okay, Danny Garcia versus Jose Ramirez. Go ahead.
I like Danny in that fight.
Okay, Danny Garcia versus what's his name? Jose Zepeda.
Yeah, I can see. Jose he throws a lot of punches too, so that's a little iffy.
Danny hit hard.
If you stand in front of Danny, you're a dead body.
Danny hits hard, but he's a counter puncher. But yeah, Jose, I can see that's a toss up with me.
Are you saying that because you didn't want to say 3 in a row? Is that
no? I can get that. I can definitely see. Montana Love, I think, will give Danny Garcia problems. I think Montana Love can give him problems at 140. And back then when we talking about Mauricio Herrera, y'all was talking about some of the guys. Mauricio Herrera at that time was picked in Puerto Rico to look good against. He was supposed to knock Mauricio Herrera out. It ended up being a controversial fight. But why was it controversial? Because of the style. Mauricio wasn't.
Yeah, Mauricio Herrera would give a lot of these dudes props.
Yes, he would give the Mauricio Herrera would compete for the 140 title with the
Yeah,
guys.
hey Mark, I understand what you're saying about the styles. You're 100% correct. But what you know what 140 reminds me of though? 140 reminds me, being undisputed at 140 reminds me of winning National Player of the Year in college.
Okay.
147 is the pros, 140 is college. Because it never has the sense that you are getting the best fighters, like that you are watching the best. And maybe that's a little bit of promotion, but if we're going to be honest, man, just talent level. Is Regis Prograde, is he an elite fighter? Is Jose Ramirez an elite fighter? Is Josh Taylor an elite fighter? From your eyes, are they elite fighters?
Yeah. Let me ask it another way. Would they be able, if they could get 147, you know, like if they could comfortably get 147, would they be able to do what they're doing there at 147, like with the crop of champions, if you normalize them?
I don't know. No, I don't think that's an opinion. I don't think so. It's kind of tough but it's kind of hard for me to answer that, man, because I'm so focused. I'm a big style type of guy, man. I never go off a guy's resume saying, well, he done fought this guy and this guy, so that means he's gonna be able to give a competition to this guy. When that doesn't happen, that just doesn't always happen. So I'm real big on the styles of the fights. I mean, what we had, Shane Mosley was the number 1 pound for pound fighter. He lost to Vernon Forrest back to back. And who did Vernon Forrest fight after that? Ricardo Mayorga, back to back. And Ricardo Mayorga didn't have a resume. It was his damn style. He lost back to back. So here you got the triangle theory with just those 3 fights as a whole. Who's the better fighter? Who's the better fighter out of those 3?
Is any of those guys at 140 pounds? Take resumes out of it. Like you said, take resumes out of it. Skills-wise, ability-wise, are they elite fighters? Anybody?
Who, the 3 that we just named?
No, the top 5. Are they elite fighters?
They're good fighters, man. I don't know about
elite though. He's saying elite.
Are they elite fighters?
There's different, good, and then there's elite.
Yeah,
not in division. Are they elite fighters?
No, they're not. Ramirez is not elite. Regis is not elite. And Josh, he showed that he can't make an adjustment.
Yeah, you saw that in this particular fight. You know, like I said, man, you had some people call him boxer size Ben. He couldn't tell, Taylor anything as far as like, making any type of adjustments, man. You had Catterall pretty much like turning the tide, in the 5th and 6th round before he even scored the knockdown, And once that happened, I was like, oh man, Taylor's in real trouble. But then after that knockdown, that's when the whole thing started. Well, some people could say that. That's where the thing started, where, like I said, all 4 judges scored all 3 judges scored the last 4 rounds in favor of Josh Taylor. It's just that one point that was taken away where, it had the difference. But even with that, they pretty much scored that 9-9. So, I mean, what could you do,
Montana Love or Josh Taylor right now?
Right now?
Go ahead and say it. Come on, say it.
Montana Love, I think.
Yep. Who else? Who else? Come on.
Let's see.
Don't lie. I don't hit Styles. No resume.
All right. Styles. Let's see. Oh, we're talking about with Josh Taylor, right?
Josh Taylor versus Montana Love.
Josh Taylor versus Subio Matias.
Matias.
Yeah.
Yo. Pound Sports in the building, man. Checking in, man. What's good with you, though? Who else? Well, I mean, I'll talk about another guy at 140 pounds in a minute. But, man, yeah, Brandon Lee. Well, not Brandon Lee.
No, Brandon Lee is a prospect.
Yeah. Shoot. What about
when do you cross that threshold? I'm sorry, Jay. I got a question though. When do you cross that threshold? Like, when do you stop being a prospect?
When you fight a contender.
Okay. Brandon Lee fought. Who he fought? He fought Sam T, and he fought what is it? Juan Heraldez?
I don't. Ron Heraldez, was he a contender at the
Samuel
140?
T? You talking about Samuel T or Sam T? Is they two different people?
It's same dude. Sam T.
Dude. Same dude. Let's see here. I mean, we're talking about he fought Ezekiel Fernandez, Juan Heraldez, Samuel Tia, Jimmy Williams, Camilo Prieto, Dakota Linger. Those were like his Brandon Lee's last 6 fights. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, he said 140 is a very deep division. I mean, we could name 10 up to 10 fighters actually that don't have a belt that could be viewed as a viable contender, and so well, before he said he was going to move up, Josh Taylor would have had to eventually face a few of those guys if he stayed at 140. I know that there was like one other potential bout for him at 140 that involves a fighter that was going to move up, and that is Teofimo Lopez. But outside of that, you would have just had to go through that same rotation, being the undisputed champion. So he just said, "Yo, let me just go ahead and move up now." But he, at least in comparison to Teofimo Lopez, who was, unified champion at 135 and ended up getting caught by George Kambosos Jr. Here, Josh Taylor just, gets the benefit of the doubt in the decision, and now he's going to move up to 147. But, like was mentioned earlier, Josh Taylor is in the same boat that Terrence Crawford is at 147 here in this case. Like, who is he going to fight at 147 pounds before he even goes after any of those guys that are kind of like listed among the top 10 at 147? That's the thing that you got to think about. I mean, you ain't going to be facing like no Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence.
You need to leave them dudes alone, Jay.
Yeah.
What is it?
I guarantee, I don't know everybody on the panel, but I'm willing to say that nobody thinks Josh Taylor is capable of beating 7 or 8 out of the top 10 fighters at 147 pounds. After
I was saying that, I don't think so. I just don't see it. I'm trying to find it. Like, I just don't.
Definitely not top 6. What they say in the Ring magazine.
He was talking trash about Ugas, so he was confident he could beat Ugas. I know he can't beat Ugas.
He can't beat.
No, he can't. He gets cooked.
But you know what? You know what, Jamil? I definitely want to see how Bob moves this fighter. I want to see how hard he works to try to make the best fights for Josh Taylor. That's gonna tell us a lot. That's gonna tell us a lot, man. That's gonna tell us a lot.
Yep. Hey, they gonna be trending on thin ice with this one. Like, hey, we got Josh Taylor, but hey, what are we gonna do with him?
Josh Taylor gonna fight Josue Vargas at 147. Watch. It's gonna be fighters like that.
Wow. Yep. So you do have, like I said, that fight. Let's say a back break for Jack Catterall, but hopefully he ends up fighting for one of those vacant world titles once the formal announcement of Josh Taylor moving up to 147 and giving up those belts.
Yeah, it's gonna be real interesting with those belts being stripped. I'm actually excited. See some new faces, man, and see some new guys trying to, you know what I mean, trying to get those titles. Even Ramirez getting another shot, so it's gonna be interesting, man.
Yep.
Hey, real fast, tell me the matchups that you would want to see for each belt, y'all.
I definitely would like to see Montana.
Montana versus who?
That's the thing. Montana.
Well, we know that Subriel Matias has to get it in for the IBF, so
Montana Regis.
Montana versus Regis?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right, give me another one.
Subriel Matias versus Nicolás Ponce.
Oh, that's the one
that's gonna be that would end up being IBF.
All right, come on, give me another one.
All right, Jack Catterall, another shot for it. You know what? I don't know. I gotta check what Jack Catterall is, but we might end up having Jack Catterall versus Teofimo Lopez, maybe. But
Okay.
No,
That's a
I
good
don't
fight.
even want T.O. thrown in. T.O. ain't did
okay,
shit to deserve to
Catterall
be
versus
thrown in.
Barbosa. How about that?
Ooh, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like
So
it. And to finish it off, what about William Zepeda versus Brandon Lee? Or I'm sorry,
Brandon,
Jose Zepeda. Jose
Yeah.
Zepeda.
Jose
Brandon
Zepeda
Lee.
versus
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Jose Zepeda maybe versus his rematch against Ramirez.
Yeah,
They
either
might.
rematch against Ramirez, or you could have Alberto Cuello versus Sandor Martin. Could end up being one. Could.
Sandor Martin, yeah, well, then he up there because he got the big win.
Yeah.
Like,
So he's up there in the rankings. So
yeah. Of course they're gonna have him up high because he got that big win, but he got to do another. I don't know.
I got to see
Title
him
shot. I'm wavering on that one, but he is up there though.
although we might
Yo,
have someone try to make a move for Howard Davies to get one of those vacant belts for 500.
don't forget
oh,
Richardson Hitchings. Yo, that is the deepest division of
Ooh.
boxing. God
They
damn.
they
Yeah,
got
man.
they
That
got
is,
him far. They actually got him surprisingly on the box rec, a little farther down than I expected. I don't really go by box rec rankings as much. They
Yeah,
don't be as
no.
accurate.
Box Rec has like a little point system,
Yeah, because they got him way further down than he should
in
be.
in the way that point system works is that, like, if fighters have like a big win, but it's a division below the division they're currently in, it still counts as part of their points. So, like,
Mm,
for example, you could have like someone like a Daniel Jacobs be near the top at super middleweight when most of his work was at middleweight. So, you know what I mean?
okay.
In live chat, man, he said, was it Fred said, throw Adrian Broner in there too. But
hey
you
yo,
also
kick
have,
Fred out of the chat. Kick Fred out of the chat.
Broner got to
but he
make
did
weight.
mention Devin Haney. Devin Haney, coming up to 140, that could be, something else. So actually,
Definitely, that's definitely
he
second.
could actually make that
Yo,
move right now. Why not?
I'm gonna keep it a bean with y'all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love Devin.
mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work at 140. Like it ain't gonna be like it ain't. I can't say 100% can Devin beat Montana. I can't say 100% can Devin beat Jose Zepeda. Like
But I
these
would
are
like those fights though.
yeah. I would love to see those fights, but 140 for Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, I don't automatically put them at the top.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's gonna be, but you know what? But you saying that makes that 140 division a little bit more interesting now. I think we'll respect the next undisputed champion to come out of this crop of fighters. You
It's the
agree?
new 154.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely is. Definitely is. All right. I was gonna go into the next major topic for the week here. Oh man, Las Vegas, man, main event.
I'm sorry. That was unprofessional.
All right, prime time. Chris Colbert. I was going up against Hector Luis Garcia. Both of the fighters came in this bout undefeated. Chris Colbert,
Don't worry.
he could have fought Roger Gutierrez for the WBA belt, but Gutierrez had to be out due to COVID. So he faces Hector Luis Garcia. And going into this bout, man, you seen Chris Colbert. He was so confident. He was brash. He was bragging. He was, oh man, he was just
How?
over the top with it.
Yeah.
Coming from a couple of, me, myself, and a few other people around, my circle, whatever, that have, interviewed Chris Colbert. Some just feel like he's, kind of, well, I wouldn't say braggadocious, but he almost like seems like a snob in a sense. That's pretty extreme, but that's, how some people, feel about him. Like, to me, he's just a very tough interview. It's like cringy. Even if y'all saw the interview that he had, there with Brian Custer, even with them, it's like he answers, and he answers almost with like too much authority and too quick. Like, yeah, nah, this, that, yeah, I'm this good, and man, he walked in there against Hector Luis Garcia, and he slept on Hector Luis Garcia. And Garcia, to me, looked like he was significantly, well, I wouldn't say significantly, but he looked like he was a bigger fighter in the ring there against, Chris Colbert. And the thing is, Chris Colbert is, somebody that kind of like works in order to break you down and try to, hit you with power shots. But he has to hit you with multiple power shots in order for him to really affect you. And for me, I just didn't feel like Hector Garcia respected any of those punches that were coming from Chris Colbert. And he just worked him, man. He just worked him. And when that knockdown happened with that counter shot, and he said, bam! And I was like, oh, man, it is it. And, they pretty much like had this thing. It was like a wrap, man. And Hector Luis Garcia just nearly swept. He nearly swept Chris Colbert in this fight. And now Hector Luis Garcia has some version of a WBA title, but more importantly, that particular bout was an eliminator bout. So Chris Colbert losing, he can't face Roger Gutierrez for that full WBA title. It'll be Hector Luis Garcia versus Roger Gutierrez later down the line for that WBA title. Chris Colbert is out of the picture. He's gone for this particular point. He said, yo, I tip my hat off to Hector Garcia. He gets the win and everything. But yeah, he got cooked.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever embarrassed themselves worse after talking more shit than Chris Colbert?
Well, he was actually very respectful in the post fight, but
not the post fight. I'm talking about pre-fight.
Oh, well, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta look because it's been some trash talking to turn bad, man. So it's a couple of them, but I don't know it's bad. We have to rank them because
he was talking shit. He was talking shit about think about it. Shakur, Wilder, Gary Russell. It wasn't just like one singular person.
Pound for pound said AB. Yeah, he actually with Jamel talking. He talking about just this all the fighters. He had so much.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Don't forget what he was saying about Shakur Stevenson too.
Mm-hmm. He talked.
Jamel Herring.
Jamel Herring, yeah.
Dang, he said something about Jamel Herring.
All them folks that was at 130. Yeah.
I didn't know he said something about Jamel. Dang, he was going down the list. My thing is, I don't have no problem with you talking junk, man. I think it's good for our sport. It's just that you have to back it up when you are doing that, man. Become the villain and be a good villain. I love good villains. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you ain't backing it up, you make it easy. It was just too easy.
Yeah.
And to me personally, in his performance, I just look at mentally that I'm more concerned about his mental state than just his performance. When the last 3 rounds, he just didn't want to fight, man. I mean, I know a lot of guys who not punchers, but they will leave it on the line when they feel like they was losing. I mean, Timothy Bradley wasn't known no puncher. He fought Ruslan to death.
But Mark, that's the difference between him and AB though. AB didn't give up against Maidana. Mind you, he moved up from 135 to 147, got the victory against Paulie, but then even with him getting cracked all over the place by Maidana, he stood his ground and he fought. Chris Colbert chose to survive.
Yeah, like you said, he made a business.
That was crazy to me. I mean, as a trainer, at that, that's concerning, man. That's really concerning because that tells me he's not confident in his punching power either. He's not confident in his technique, man. He's like when you do that, that tells a lot, man. So I think the blueprint is definitely out for him. So a lot of guys is going to be coming right
at him.
They coming right for him now, man. That's
you can definitely. You can definitely tell that. You know how you got some guys that practice sort of endurance and resilience. I'm not trying to paint an overarching brush on this man, but you can sort of tell when he get tired, he don't do them extra sit-ups that he need to. He'll do 15 and be like, oh, that's good. Because that's sort of a muscle that you build up, that sort of endurance. And the man had his number in kind of every facet of the match. But I will say that I did see him attempt to, but once he realized that his attempt wasn't going to do anything, it sort of demoralized him. And then what was his option? To press and get stopped, or say, let me just finish on my feet. AB though in the Madonna fight definitely wanted to win the fight, and he had not lost before. And if that was a 15-round fight, AB start coming on. He just kind of got hit in a couple of them rounds where
very, very, very. I agree, because he was Broner was trying to dog walk Madonna. That's the crazy thing.
Hold on, I can't really
who that
wait.
was.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
But yeah, I said Broner tried to dog walk Madonna, and that was a crazy thing too, to be, moving up and you coming up trying to dog walk the big guy who then took you down twice. I actually like that fight. It's one of my favorite fights. Being from Ohio and seeing Broner put on performance, even though that's one of my favorite fights. So, but yeah, definitely.
But you know what happened to Broner after that though? Once Broner went to that place, did we ever see him go to that place again? Or did he always have that in the back of his mind ever since that fight?
I think that also happened to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. After he lost to what's his name, Sergio. He never showed any real heart ever again.
I get this all the time. I hear that from a lot of people. You probably over 2.5 million people say the same thing y'all say. I never felt like Broner lost something in that fight where he just wasn't the same, because I've been following him since he was in the young amateurs. And one thing about Broner, and people don't point out, was he was always in fights where he was getting outworked, but he had power that got him out of it. At 135, guys were throwing more punches than him. He was throwing less, but guess what? He was knocking them out. So he's never been this guy who was just, oh my God, he's throwing so many punches. No, he was able to, hurt you, and then you go on a shell, and then he'll throw a little flurry here and there. But Broner, to me, he's always still fought like that. He just didn't take more risks after Madonna fight. He was more defensive sounded and countering, but I've never felt like he just left that all there. He always been that. He had controversial fights in his ninth professional fight where he was where they felt he took a fight from a Mexican. So I've seen way more controversial decisions before he even made it to the Madonna. That's what I'm saying.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is I agree with everything you said, but the point I'm pointing out is what you're saying, which is after that, Broner became shell shocked. Yeah, you're right. I literally went to maybe 3 of Broner fights. I really liked him when, like you said, he had fights where people were outworking him, and then he sort of used his power to kind of get out of jail free. But after that fight, did Broner really try to throw his hands as much? Like he never truly threw his hands a lot, but after that fight, he wasn't, like, at least in them spurts that he would throw his hands, he stopped doing that. Like in the bigger fights that he fought, he didn't do it in Pacquiao. He didn't do it in Sean Porter. He didn't do it in name any other big fight he had. He stopped throwing his hands. Who that?
Mikey Garcia.
Garcia, exactly. Go ahead, outsider. My bad.
Yeah, as for Chris Colbert, yeah, I think it's gonna take him at least maybe 2 years before people he can really get that momentum again.
Yeah.
It's his power. I think it's another thing too that what's concerning is going to be just his punching power. Him being able to really hurt guys. A lot of people don't even pay attention to these fighters where they lack self-confidence in themselves if they're not getting a lot of knockouts. I remember when Devin Haney went into the room with Ramirez and asked him, how was his punching power? Y'all guys remember this?
Yeah, I remember that.
Y'all remember this? That bothers Devin. He hears that. I didn't heard stories when Devin sparring with certain guys and want to know if he's hurting them. You know what I mean? And certain guys will say certain things like, yeah, you're doing good. And then go on their own little channel and say, man, you can't punch. You can't do this. They listen to that. And that can bother them. And that sometimes lead them down that road where you got PEDs getting involved. Look at Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson wasn't known to be a puncher. And I wasn't surprised that he got caught with PEDs either. You know what I mean? You fight Lamont American and go 12 rounds, you're going to be questioned. You're going to be questioned. That was actually still a good fight. But a lot of these guys, that's what really is my concern when it comes to Chris, is he going to be able to just dig deep and just, go back to the drawing boards and you can still be a great boxer. You don't have to be a puncher to win world titles. I tell these guys all the time, you don't.
Yeah, you don't.
You better have some legs.
You gotta have some legs, be able to move around the ring, or at least have knowledge of where you are in the ring and be able to utilize every part of the ring. Like say, hey, if I'm in this particular situation, I know I can move this way in order to get out of it. But like you said there with Chris Colbert, this is a definite setback for him, especially there, 130 pounds. I mean, yeah, you had at the top, you're going to have, the unification bout that's, scheduled there for April 30th. But you have, other guys that are there, like you said, former world champ Jamel Herring. You got Lamont Roach Jr., who, lost to Jamel Herring, and that's his lone loss. You got like former challenger there, John O'Carroll. We got to see if, other fighters are out there. You got Kenichi Ogawa that just won the IBF belt. Abraham Nova is undefeated. I don't know if he's going to be able to face Abraham Nova, but that's, a guy that's there at 130 that, was a pretty good fighter. So, there's a good number of contenders there. Actually, I see a good particular fight that could happen between Abraham Nova and Robeson Consacao. That would probably be a good fight at 130. But yeah, there's like a few, fighters out there that, would really give a big challenge to Chris Colbert, especially if they feel like they could walk through his punches. He got to be able to see that, hey, either, I throw a lot of punches that'll overwhelm my opponent, or they got to figure out a way to build some power in order for him to, take out his opponents quicker or sooner rather than later.
I have a question for the panel.
All right.
So after round two, where we saw Chris Colbert come out and mentally in his mind, what I saw him do was he wanted to make a statement. He wanted to make a certain statement. And once he tried to make the statement, and then the guy he was facing pretty much checked him and then one-upped him, what adjustment would everyone? I want everyone to tell me, what adjustment would you have given him to win the fight? What could he have done based upon what we know about him and his skill set? Because round 8 or so, 8, 9, you did see that he was, and then what's his name got tired at one point. Like he got his second win toward like 8 or 9, and then Chris Colbert was like throwing shots, and then the round ended, and then that sort of gave him his second win. But outside of that, what advice would you have given him, or what strategy would you have said after the first 2 rounds where you realized, oh snap, this guy actually,
like I was saying when talking about this particular fight, I kind of said that, Hector Garcia didn't really respect the power of Chris Colbert's punches. But, coming from the tail of the tape or whatever it was, you seen that, Chris Colbert had like a reach advantage of 2 inches or whatever it was, right? Or actually more than that, 4, So why would you go in there and, try to, make a statement? Okay, you make a statement and it doesn't really, phase Hector Garcia. So you got to be able to adjust and try to, do something to box, move around the ring. But the way that Chris Colbert he moves like 1, 2, 1, 2, and then tries to, get it in and then move. he doesn't like, pop in and pop out like that. At least for me, he doesn't. But on the other side, though, you're talking about someone in, Hector Garcia that's, fairly skilled himself. Coming into this bout, it was like, yo, yeah, some people don't know about him, but other people say, hey, man, yo, this guy's pretty good, you know? But, for me, I think after those first 2 rounds, see about trying to, make an adjustment, try to box, use your reach advantage, throw the jab, be more active with the jab. 1-1-1-2, get out of it. 1-1-1-2, get out of it. It just depends on how, Hector Garcia reacts to it. If he's going to move his head, if he's going to try to see where you're at and then try to dodge or whatever it is, then you got to see, okay, where is he moving? After I throw the jab, where is he moving? Wherever he moves, that's where my next punch comes at, But he just didn't really make those adjustments. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I can go. I would have after the second round and he's seeing that he tried to make a statement like that, I would have told him, you got to lose. One thing being a great boxer when you're not a puncher, you got to be able to set traps and have great strategy. One of the strategies that you can use is clinching. You can throw 1-2s and clinch these guys that got good work rate on the inside and make and offset them. They can become frustrated and play into your hands in the later rounds too, because they're not being able to hit you like they want to. You already said the same thing too, where you're talking about him boxing, moving. He already showed you that he can move around the ring and he got survival skills, which means you can box too. He just was not boxing. He was running in the way. You know what I mean? He'd throw a shot here and there, but he was not really engaging. Some people get it twisted when you're talking about boxing, running, and then boxing. Floyd didn't run. Floyd knew how to stand in the pocket. He knew how to make you miss. He'll move lateral movement, but there were plenty of times where he'd be in there making you pay. And he was not known to be a puncher towards the end of his career. Right. He was not known to be a puncher. So you can snap a guy's head back and not be really a solid puncher. You just have to be in place to throw those shots and move around. But I thought he used lateral movement to survive. He just didn't use it to win with his offense. You know what I mean? So he showed you to escape, but he just didn't use it. There's different ways you can use that, especially when you're not being a puncher. He didn't have to stand toe to toe with him and just go to war or try to counter here and there. But you just have to be able to mix it up and make that fighter frustrated at times, because it's all about the mindset at the end of the day. So
speaking on that point, Ohio, it's all about the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I asked y'all that question to ask this question. Do we think that his mind was just gone to where he was just, against the 8 ball so much? Or do we think even if he tried to implement that game plan in round 2, what Hector Garcia had and the skill set that Hector Garcia, the way he set traps, the way he threw punches, the deficiencies that we see in Chris Colbert, would that knockout would the knockdown have happened anyway, or that punch? Now, not even the knockdown. Would the outcome have been the same, where he got outboxed and countered and all this other stuff, even if he did try to outbox somebody due to his flaws? Would it have even mattered?
If he would have not got knocked down?
No. I'm saying if round 2, so in our scenarios, round 2, he tried to make a statement, first 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. Round 2, we his coach, we say, hey, boxing move, stop doing that, boxing move. Would the punch that kept continuing to land, the punch that eventually knocked him down, would it have even mattered? Would that have won him the fight, or would Garcia have still landed that punch that continued to hit him?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that shot would have still happened, because you got to get hit first in order to have respect for that opponent. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think he would have had that would have definitely come to play, because he was trying to hit him. When he got hit with that shot, you can tell on the face expression, he was like, oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? So it makes you respect the guy. You start taking less risks.
Yeah.
You know, when you feel a guy's punching power, you know, Mike Tyson said it all the best. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has a game plan so they get hit. But yeah, that's definitely that was definitely the case. I think it would have still happened because he didn't respect that opponent. He did not respect them. And some guys, like you said, has a good attribute where they know how to cut off the ring on a good boxer, period. So you can be a good boxer, but if you face a guy who knows how to cut the distance off and force you, you're going to be forced to fight. You know, you're going to come across some of those guys like that.
So would the outcome have changed if he started boxing though, or would he have gotten beat almost every round? Still, even if he tried to outbox him.
I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, that's if he would, that's a tough one because
was he facing a better man, or was it just his mindset was gone at that point in the fight when he did try to do that?
That's what I see. I think, but even if they fight again now, I don't know, man. But yeah, his mind, he seemed like he was not there after that, man. He just seemed like he was in, so he just was not trying to win. And here's another thing. A lot of that talk and the junk and all that stuff plays a big part too, man, because they don't want to get knocked out. They don't want to be the meme. They don't want to be the talk of social media, even though he's still, you know, lost. But they think
got
about
knocked down, yeah.
Especially in this new social media era. That's the reason why a lot of these guys don't even want to fight each other because of social media, man. It's crazy. They ain't even taking risks no more. So that can definitely play a big part of him not taking risks in that fight no more, where he just say, nah, I'm a cruise. But come on, man, you undefeated. You trying to fight for a world title. You got to put it on the line eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Would it have mattered, James?
For me, I'm not sure if it would matter depending on the skill level of Hector Garcia, man. I think that, you know, I really think that Chris Colbert overlooked the caliber of Hector Garcia's background, and that, you know, once he saw what was happening there in those first 2 rounds and said, "Oh snap, I'm in a fight," and he would have had to come up with a plan B. And didn't look like he had much of a plan B that could, you know, really affect what Hector Garcia was doing. So that's why I said, like, yo, Hector Garcia just came in there and he looked like he was a bigger guy. And so with someone like a Chris Colbert, who kind of like throws his punches in spurts, he couldn't really like do something to overwhelm Garcia. And Garcia was like, yo, if I know that he's throwing these type of punches and I can take him, as long as I can throw one back, and if I could hurt him, then shoot, that's my confidence, man. I'm good. And that's why he eventually had what happened in round 7, where he just took a shot and then threw the counter and bam, that was it, right? You know, knocked down Chris Colbert, you know what I'm saying? And after that, I just think that Chris Colbert just felt like, yo, yeah, I lost this fight. Let me just, you know, like Marcus was saying, let me see if I could just get through this particular fight and, you know, see that I don't get stopped and knocked out. Want to bring in one person in here. I think he's checking in from, I don't know if it's in a store in the Bronx or something like that, man. Let me see here before I bring in another guest. Yo, it's guy Matt Brown from MVO, man. Yo, what's happening?
Listen, you guys are some of the best boxing minds on boxing social media and within the media. I heard some great analysis from Ohio Runs Boxing. I heard great analysis from Mike Grady, but all this analysis means absolutely nothing. There is one reason, and one reason only, why Chris Colbert got his ass spanked last night. And it's very simple. All enemies of the bomb squad shall have no good come to them. I've been trying to tell y'all. JR, how long I've been trying to tell you for, man? I've been trying to tell you. And this little colored hair F word, I'm not going to use the word on your program because you are a classy man and I don't want to get your program canceled. But this colorful hair F word, okay, this bitch ass nigga, he has so much smoke for the great Deontay Wilder. But let me tell you something. You would have had to carry Deontay Wilder out of that ring last night. This guy packed it in as soon as things weren't going his way. He is a bitch. Coward. Yellow. He's not that guy. All that talk, the shit he was talking about Jamel Herring, and Herring roasted his ass too, by the way. The shit he was talking about Shakur Stevenson, Errol Spence Jr., Jamal Charlo. He was making enemies out of everybody that the people love so that he could build his name up. And he forgot about one thing. You got to fight the fights, my brother. You got to fight the fights. If you're going to be Mr. Billy Badass talking shit about everybody that has a little bit of clout, that has a fan base, then you damn sure better be on your game all the time, okay? He lost to a better man. Yes, he did. But I think you saw how little Chris Colbert offered in terms of toughness, in terms of intestinal fortitude, and in terms of wanting to be great. He doesn't want to be great. He wants greatness handed to him. He don't get it out the mud. This is a guy that's been protected his whole life in Brooklyn. Okay. They thought that he was going to be something, so the hood protected him. Okay. This is a guy who had everything handed to him. And last night, he got his ass handed to him. That's all I got to say about that.
You know, something that I was hoping before that knockdown happened, like every fighter has to go through some adversity before you can really crown them, before you can start making all these great claims. Hence all those small guys that they try to crown, and then they get either they jaw broken or, you know, beat by a better fighter that's just more technical. And so I was really hoping with the adversity that he was facing that he would rise to the occasion. So you could be like, oh, I was running it through my mind like I was going to talk about him facing adversity. But yeah, he probably hadn't faced that adversity before, which is why he wasn't ready for it.
But the thing about it is, I mean, we talked about, you know, the thing with like Adrian Broner, and that, you know, when he faced adversity, he tried to do what he could in order to get himself back into the fight against
Absolutely. Adrian Broner stepped up like a man when he faced adversity.
You know, you talk about Deontay Wilder. Like Deontay Wilder, you know, he was down, but he was still fighting, you know. And it's more about not giving up. And in this fight, Chris Colbert looked like he packed it in, man.
Yeah.
He packed it in.
He's Victor Ortiz with no power.
Yo, crazy, yo. All right, getting another guest here. The host of Chicken Talk on Twitter Spaces. Lazy Lefty is in the building here. What's going on, Lefty?
What's good? Walking this dog.
Oh man, I'm surprised.
Hey, I got a question on Ohio Runs Boxing.
Oh,
somebody tell you doing a card in Cincinnati?
You said what?
You doing a card in Cincinnati? Somebody told me Ohio Run Boxing is doing a card in a promotion, a fight card in Cincinnati.
No. I do co-promotion with them. No, you talking about my boy Rondo. Rondo was doing that. That's his. He's doing a card right now in Cincinnati. That's coming up.
What day is it?
I think it's on the 19th or the 16th of next month.
It's in Cincinnati.
Yep, they gotta have a cut. They gotta. Yeah,
it's probably Saturday.
That's gonna be on the 16th, I believe.
Oh, okay.
You know where's that?
This middle week.
Louisville. I think on the border. I think it's on the outside.
Hold on, it's gonna be in Louisville.
Yeah, like on the borderline. You know how Cincinnati and Kentucky right there. It's like.
It's gonna be in right across the bridge.
Yeah. Not too far from there.
At that hotel.
The location. I gotta look at the location.
Yeah. Check out the location.
I got you.
Word. Yeah, man. So, yeah, man. You know, like I said, we were talking about this thing here with Chris Colbert, man. Like, yeah, he packed it in. He got humbled. A lot of people say he got cooked. He got
Got
cooked.
his ass cooked.
He got his ass cooked. And the thing about it is, man, I said, yo, you could like, how could he even go into this fight this way when he knew? Okay, look, okay, you had the situation that you were coming into was okay. You could have fought Roger Gutierrez for the WBA full title. Okay, Gutierrez out for COVID. Cool. You could have had a choice of saying, hey, let me just, put this off to the side, have a break, and then have the fight with Gutierrez later. You chose not to do that. You said, let's go ahead, let's keep this event, let's keep this fight. Go up against Hector Garcia, right? It's a WBA eliminator. So you know in your mind, okay, cool. Yeah, I know I'm not fighting for the title right now, but I have to win this fight or else I'm out. And he goes in there in those first 2 rounds and he tries to, get at him and try to break Hector Garcia, and Hector Garcia wasn't budging. So after that, it's like, oh, snap. What have I got myself into? And you didn't even make no adjustments. And then you're going to pack it in. How you pack it in when you know it's an eliminator? When you say, oh, listen, I've done all this. I've done this. I beat this guy. I stopped this dude. When I interviewed him for the initial conference call with him and Gutierrez, he's like, yo, y'all ain't stopping me from getting this title, And it's like, okay, if you have all that energy at that particular point, when at the time you would have been fighting for the world title, why don't you have that energy in the ring when you're going up against somebody in an eliminator, knowing that you win this fight, you're going to face Gutierrez later?
He had that energy, JR. The problem was his energy was matched with someone else's energy, and he don't have it in him. Anybody could be the bully. Anybody could be a front runner when things are going your way. But what do you do in those times where you are getting your ass handed to you? Are you going to step up and be a man and fight back? Or are you going to
What you gonna do? Fight or run?
Exactly. Like, come on. This guy, Chris Colbert, I'm so happy that he got exposed. I'm so happy because this has been a long time coming. I knew that this was an insecure little man. Okay, when you go off popping at the mouth at anybody that people love, that means that you are an insecure little man and you are looking to hype yourself up on the backs of someone else instead of off your own accomplishments. And the chickens came home to roost. It is what it is.
And the thing about it is, he was talking about, oh, when I was coming into the game, they were calling me Little B-Hop, and I wanted to break that name, and then I named, I saying I'm prime time, and I get the cosign from Deion Sanders. Now I'm prime time, and I'm this, and I'm that. But you gotta prove yourself in the ring, man. You gotta be able to prove it in the ring. And when you tried to go at Hector Garcia, and Hector Garcia was still right there in front of you, you froze up because you thought he was going to fold, and he didn't. And when he didn't fold, you were like, oh, snap. What's my plan B? What do I do next? What do I do next? And, Marcus was saying, boxing academic, it's like after those first 2 rounds, you got to be able to do something else.
Yep.
He didn't really do nothing else.
He was just earmuffing it the whole fight.
It's a wrap for the kid.
I think a lot of, and I salute to Deontay Wilder. I'm a big Wilder fan. If it wasn't for Wilder, I wouldn't even have an Instagram with my little 12K followers, man. He actually posted a picture I did with him and tagged me, but I didn't have an Instagram. This was a couple years back. But I got nothing but love for the champ, man. But yeah, it did rub me the wrong way when Coach Chris was talking about him. Felt like he went against the code, man. But, he's a grown man, and he get to see what he wanted to say. So, yeah, I had to take that. I really did take that. I'm like, hey, it is what it is. But, it is coming crazy. It's kind of crazy when you see a lot of the Wilder fans coming because they was all on my post, man, and on my IG going in. You seen the Wilder fans, man, coming. And I made a little funny meme myself with him on him running. But at the end of the day, man, I do. A part of me didn't want to see him lose so fast. I wanted to see him, go up a little bit, you know what I mean, and then come down. But we need villains. He's one of them, man. I felt like he would have been a good villain, but he just now. I just think he's gonna get walked through. I just personally feel like a lot of people just gonna walk through that blueprint now. It's very easy. He doesn't have the dog in him.
Well, I want to know from you, because you said that you was hoping he would go up and then come down a little bit. We need a villain, this, that, and the other, right? Mm-hmm. What I want to know from you is, what exactly was he hoping to gain out of talking shit about Deontay Wilder? Because I guarantee you, the fans that he gained, them crackers, okay? The fans that he gained ain't watch his fight last night, ain't never bought a ticket to see him, will never buy a ticket to see him. All he did was alienate potential fans who actually support guys like him with the black dollar.
I agree. I think he was putting on when you get guys like that, sometimes it depends on who he rubs the wrong way. Because look at Rolly. Look how Rolly got in the position he did. He got into a tank fight. Now, he didn't do talking about Wilder or anything like that, but he talked his way into getting in the position in a fight that he didn't deserve. You get what I'm saying?
Troy need to come on.
So a lot of
my bad, Ohio.
No, it's cool. Yeah. But so you see a lot of guys finesse the system like that, and I think that's what he was trying to do. But he just went about it the wrong way. And there's really, you think about it, it's really like no wrong way to really, talk stuff in boxing, and get under the people's skin and get your name out there. So he went that route. I didn't like it, but it is what it is. I have to respect it in that way, and that's why I said.
But here's why I don't respect it. Deontay Wilder's a heavyweight. He fights at 130. They're not rivals. They're never gonna fight in the ring. Like, what you're talking about to me is you talking shit to get your name out there. You should be talking shit about people that you might potentially fight. Y'all not in the same. You and Deontay Wilder not in the same lane.
I agree. He even talked shit about Mike Tyson. I mean, like, what's the point? And Mike Tyson is a fellow Brooklyn native. What's the point of that? Man?
Like, this guy's not in your lane. So to me, you were trying to curry favor with them crackers. and it is what it is. It is what it is.
It looked like the cool job.
Yeah, man.
It rubbed me the wrong way. I'm a realist, man, at the end of the day, but I always look at two sides of the story, two point of views, and like, dang, you don't have to go this route. You don't have to go this route, but I see what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I get you. I'm on your side. I definitely, he definitely rubbed me the wrong way. If I would have seen him during the time, we probably wouldn't even have talked. I'm just being honest.
Well, I've said
he's getting rubbed by another man, though. Why
he's
getting rubbed by another man,
bro? What is going on here? What kind of program is this turning into?
Oh, no.
He said you're getting rubbed on by another man. He said he's talking about him rubbing us the wrong way. I said that's for him doing the job. I think that's the whole thing, is you want to be able to try to get under the emotions of people to bring interest, man, in watching you. I think when the people are happy to see you lose, you did your job.
Yes, but you did your job if they actually watch you lose. Guess what? I didn't watch his fight last night. I will never watch a Chris Colbert fight, because you're not going to get a hate click or a hate view from me. I will never watch another one of his fights. So, yeah, I heard he lost, but I ain't watching. Showtime's not going to say it was a highly rated program. I bet you that.
How you doing, gentlemen? How's everybody doing? How do I sound? I sound all right?
All right. Yeah, we got you in here, Troy. What's happening?
Okay, good. You know what? I actually wanted to talk about Colbert. I didn't want. Colbert is talented, but I've said this once or 1,000 times. He's very hittable, and last night that showed that, because he didn't even see that right hook coming. He caught him full blast. That's why he couldn't recover from it. Yes, he beat the count and he got up, but no. He was concussed after that because he just takes too many punches. So, the fact that he lost the way he did doesn't surprise me. Maybe and hopefully now he'll go check that fight out on the replay and realize he has to tighten up his defense, and he can't live on the speed and keep his hands down the way he fights. Because he gets hit entirely too much in every fight. Now, the whole stuff he said about Wilder, if you could tell me anything that he lied about, then I'll agree with you. But he didn't lie about one thing when he spoke to Wilder.
First of all, it was an opinion. It was an opinion. So don't say what he lied about. That just means that you agree with him. Second of all,
I do.
He shouldn't have no public opinion on that man. What was he supposed to gain about that? It's not his situation to even talk about. Why is he talking about that man's situation?
I guess the same. I guess for the same reason why Wilder had an opinion on Mike Tyson, where somebody was comparing him to Mike Tyson. He's like, nah, you can't compare me to him because the X, Y, Z and X, Y, Z.
Actually, Deontay Wilder had an opinion on Mike Tyson because from the beginning, Mike Tyson would speak out against Deontay Wilder and not support him. And he even said that it hurt. First of all, he even said that it hurt him that guys like Tyson, who we're supposed to be looking up to, the OGs, didn't reach back and try to reach out and try to help him along his journey.
Fact.
So let's keep it real if we really want to talk about Mike Tyson.
I didn't see Tyson speaking out about him. What I heard Tyson say is that, he could punch, but he needs to improve. And, you can't be a victim if you're 6'7", over 200 pounds. You're crying victim out here, but you can't be that victim because it's not going to work. That's basically what he said.
I don't even know what that means.
Crying victim, but you got $90 million in the bank. How the hell you a victim?
This Mike Tyson Deontay Wilder thing was way before Deontay Wilder started making money. So you late to the party, which is why you seem uninformed about it. You're way late to the party.
He always said that. He always said that he had to tighten up his skills as well too.
You're way late to the party.
I don't see anything wrong about what he said about Wilder. Maybe he didn't like his approach and all that.
Tyson was coming off, and I'm gonna be honest. Tyson and a few other fighters was coming off for jealousy when Wilder was getting a lot of.
Why in the hell would Tyson be jealous of Wilder?
Because he ain't doing it no more.
Go ahead and break that down.
Ohio, can I tell you something? Can I tell you something, Ohio? Can I please tell you something, Ohio? Please.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Troy has his own reality, and you gotta just respect that he has his own reality. I just want to give you your disclaimer. Keep going, sir.
I asked a simple question, fellas. Why would Mike Tyson, the icon, be jealous of Deontay Wilder, who didn't accomplish a fraction of what he did? Please answer me.
Let me finish. Because he was being called the most feared. Sometimes as competitors, you do get jealous. Floyd Mayweather proved this over and over again by bringing up bogus headlines with certain fighters he was that was making fights. When Wilder had big fights, here come Mayweather with these bogus headlines to take the attention from these fighters. Floyd was jealous of him too. Yes, they had accomplished a lot, but these fighters are human as well. So you got to understand where it came from. Floyd definitely was saying was doing a lot of sneak dissing, and he actually betted against Wilder and publicly was upset when he seen certain things. So yeah, you see they are entitled to their opinion, but we do call it out for what it is. Wilder was happy. Mayweather was definitely happy when he seen Wilder down. He had everything to say when he seen that. I remember one of his posts on IG. It showed him opening up a curtain and looking out to the sunset when Wilder first lost. And I forgot what the post said, but it was a direct message, to the champion. And then all of a sudden, you talking about I want to help him. I don't respect people like that. So I said no. He should never go and help work with Mayweather the way Mayweather handled that situation before he lost. Give that man his roses while he's on top. Yes, you can criticize him and say he's not this or he need to work on that. I'll never complain about that because those are facts. But
that's what you're doing right now, though. That's exactly what you're doing right now.
But
were they really saying that stuff in good faith, though? Were they saying it in good faith? Were they really saying their criticism in good faith?
Tyson was. Mayweather's always been petty, but I can tell you, you have to watch interviews with Tyson, like the one he was talking about. Tyson said, Mr. Steves or whatever. He said, how you gonna fight him and not fight Joshua? Just talking to him. No, Mike Tyson has no reason in the world to be jealous of any living current fighter because they haven't accomplished anything that he's accomplished. He's the icon. He's the legend. Wilder has never achieved that status, and he will never achieve that status.
Hey,
Ever.
Jr.
But it,
Can I touch on
Listen,
Troy?
Mike
Please?
Tyson
but
has
hold
always
on.
been a
Nah,
jealous and bitter towards boxing. So why are we pretending like this is like breaking news? He's
but
always been that way.
but to what Marcus was saying, like these guys, from yesteryear or whatever it is, if they, they could, they criticize, a few of these fighters that have been at the top or are at the top in boxing,
No
but
problem with
it's
that.
like it's like not much different than what happens in other sports. Like as a competitor, you see what these people are doing, and even though it might not be to, I guess, a level of where they've been at, but the level of success that they are getting right now is at most times more than what they were doing when they were active. So, for example, if you had somebody that was more accomplished but didn't get as much money as, a fighter of today, then they're looking
Oscar
at this
Robertson,
like,
he was another bitter one.
hey, how come he's getting all this stuff? He could get some of these particular accolades, especially not just from a money perspective, but from a social media perspective, as we're in that type of age right now, that how come they're getting all this particular attention without doing what we did during our time?
Hey,
So
hey,
that is part of it.
Boxing
And then
hey, Jay.
also as a competitor, you're like, man, I know this guy ain't that good. I know he ain't
Hey,
that good. It's like
I
just like
want to,
basketball.
Jay. I want to piggyback off of that for Troy, right? I don't know Troy, but a lot of people be like, "Oh, why was Andre Ward jealous, or why was Floyd jealous, or why was Mike Tyson jealous?"
Andre
It's very
Ward is not
simple.
jealous.
Wait, I'm explaining. Andre Ward's my favorite fighter, right? And let me tell you why they're jealous, right? And I'm not even saying that they're wrong. All three of those guys are boxing lifers. They were decorating amateurs. They took their craft very seriously, focused on technique, and they study boxing. And to watch somebody, and I love Wilder, but to watch somebody just coming off the street and be elite on every level of boxing without putting in the hard work. Basically, he sneers at all the traditions and all the things that you were supposed to do in boxing.
And he's from Alabama.
He purposely goes against. And he's top 5 highest paid boxers, and is in a record book
You go get
for
no
title
top 5
defenses.
boxers.
No, he's paid top 5 boxers. Don't do that.
One.
Don't do that. What?
Can you add that he's from Alabama, Jamil, so people can like follow what you're saying?
Wilder is what is his last 3 or 4 paydays over 20 million a pop?
Mm-hmm.
Who's
He
making
fought
money like
one top 5 boxer. That's it. One.
No, I said top 5 paid. That's what I said.
Paid earners.
I
Like
don't
earners.
care about that, man. I don't care about their pay. But let me
Yeah,
say this, right?
Yo, did that shit just all go over his head?
Let me say this. Excuse me. If Tyson and Wilder walk into a room and it's filled with reporters and people, who do you think people are going to flock to? Deontay Wilder or Mike Tyson? If Mike Tyson has a fight coming out on the same night as Deontay Wilder, which one of those fights are going to sell out first? Mike Tyson.
Who currently
You know
has more
why?
money?
Because it's not about money. It's about how you were built,
It is for
and
some
how you.
For some,
It's
it
not
is.
a you talking money, and I'm talking about building an actual boxing legacy. If Mike Tyson said, okay,
Hey, Jay, that's a good
I'm gonna
comment.
come out. I'm gonna come out with the fight the same night that Wilder's coming out. Which one of those fights you think people are gonna buy first? It ain't gonna be the Wilder fight. I don't give a damn who's in there with him. It's not gonna be the Wilder fight. Mike Tyson is an icon, man. He's 50 years old, 50 plus years old, and people still flock and run to him. Deontay Wilder's in his 30s, and he doesn't have the same effect on people, man. He doesn't. Because you know why? No, hold on. Hold on a second. Let me finish. Because see, Tyson gave you the truth of who his character is. He gave you the real Tyson, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. I was never a big fan of Tyson's coming up. I was a Holyfield fan, but he gave you all that he was. Whereas Wilder played a character. If he dies, he dies. stuff like that. He gave you a character. In all reality, that was never him. He didn't show you his true character. He gave you a character, and that's why. And he didn't fight no top. He fought one top 5 guy named Tyson, funny enough, and he got washed.
Now, here's the thing: what you were saying about Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder, and we're talking about eras here. Okay, I know you're talking about Mike Tyson and what he did during this time. All right, and his time was the 80s and 90s. Okay, we're in 2022. A few years from now, or a decade from now, or whatever it is, there's going to be a group of fans that have watched boxing from 2010, 2015, 2020. And one of the fighters that's going to be standing out from that particular era is going to be Deontay Wilder. And so you're going to have a legion of fans in the sport that will recognize Deontay Wilder and what he meant to the sport. Just straight up. And the thing about it is that you have, regardless of what he did during this career, whatever resume he's had or whatever, he had in this particular era a group of fans that were loyal to him. And so,
and never bought his pay-per-view.
Regardless of what he did in the ring and what he has done in the ring, because it's very highly likely that last fight against Tyson Fury was pretty much a wrap for him, that those fans are still going to look up to him. Whether, Deontay Wilder, the Bronze Bomber, Bomb Squad, all of that, they're going to look up to him and what he did in the ring. Especially, earlier in this particular podcast, we talked about Deontay Wilder in his fights against Tyson Fury. One of the things was, no matter how bad he looked or how down he was in the second and third fights, he never gave up. And that's one of the things that stood up for his fans, was that, you know what? It didn't really matter how bad it looked. He never gave up. And that's something that people in the sport of boxing respect. They respect somebody that doesn't give up. Even if they know that he is going up against a better fighter, at least he says, you know what? I'm still going to be trying no matter what, because, like he usually says when he was undefeated, he says, most of these fighters need 12 rounds. All I need is 2 seconds. And that was his mentality, was that, hey, as long as I have those 2 seconds, I still have a chance against any opponent that steps in the ring with me.
He's still waiting on them 2 seconds.
Hey, JR, you saying he ain't give up like the New York fighters, man? Is Matt still in there? Damn.
Nah, let me say this.
Matt actually clowned the guy. He clowned the guy. He clowned him.
Let me say this, though. Everything you're saying, that's what a fighter's supposed to do. You're not supposed to give up. I give him credit where credit's due, but the fact that he didn't give up, so what? So what? That's what you're supposed to do. That's a part of the game. That's a part of the game and all that. But Mike Tyson fought in 2021, didn't he? Didn't he fight Roy Jones in 2021?
Roy Jones.
Okay, well, there you go. Hey, how did that work out? Worked out pretty good, huh?
Well, yeah. Troy, why you living in the past? Why can't we focus on the now and future?
Wilder's in the past. When's the last time he fought?
Wilder's a current fighter. Why are we talking about Mike Tyson?
Current win. He hasn't fought in a year. He hasn't fought in a year. So when's his next fight? Since he's so current, when's his next fight?
Neither has Errol Spence.
When's his next fight? I asked a simple question. Since he's so current, when's his next fight? It's been a whole year now. Errol fight is scheduled to fight old boy over here, Ugas. So when is Wilder's next fight?
But two weeks ago we could have said that the same thing about
when is Wilder's next fight, gentlemen?
We don't know.
Because there is no next fight, and he's not a current fighter. He's over here talking about he got to take this and take that, and maybe he'll come back. That dude is going to retire. Then he's finally going to have that baby that he wanted.
And if he does retire, okay. What does that do with what everybody said? It doesn't take away or negate anything that anyone said on the panel positive about him. It doesn't
I
negate
never
any
once
of that.
took away anything. I never once said anything negative about him at all. Have I? No, I have not.
Question, right?
All right.
For as great as Mike Tyson was, I don't want to take nothing away from Mike. Wilder's done something that Mike's never done. Regardless of what you can say about Wilder, Wilder is one of the only few heavyweight champions that has medaled and won a world title. That's not nothing to sneer at, bro.
His docu-series is going to be amazing.
Say that one more time for me.
It's going to be amazing when they make it.
Say that one more time for me.
He's one of the few that heavyweight champions that have medaled in the Olympics and won a world title.
Yeah, kind of like George Foreman and Joe Frazier, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
great fighters.
Yeah,
great fighters. Yes.
Yeah, again, that's something that's been done already.
Is that Mike? Yeah, but has Mike done it?
No, he doesn't.
Oh, all right,
no,
cool.
He
I'm
hasn't.
just asking for a friend.
No, he hasn't. But that don't have nothing to do with the price of rice in China. The man is 50 plus years. No, hold on. The man is 50 plus years old, and he's still relevant, and he is bigger than Wilder at 50 plus years. Matter of fact, he's bigger than any current living fighter at 50 plus years old.
For me, save the accolades, just the dough.
Name me a current fighter that's actually bigger than Mike Tyson, a current one. Go ahead. And also, please remember you said that Wilder was current. So please, name me a current fighter that's bigger than Tyson.
Troy, you sound like them people who this is what we used to do and never give credit to anybody.
You sound like you have a bag of excuses because I'm not. Listen,
but here's the thing, though.
Listen, I'm not making up no excuses.
No.
I'm simply asking some simple, honest questions. Hold on. Then I'll shut my mouth and go back on mute. Name me a current fighter right now.
No, he's more popular.
Who is bigger than Mike Tyson in status and all that?
He's more
Name it to me. Name it.
Thank you. Fighters that got more money than Mike.
Hold on, Jamil. Hold on.
Just saying.
I don't give a damn about their money.
Hold on.
I don't care about their status.
Hold on. I said something earlier, Troy. I said, look, okay, we know the popularity of Mike Tyson. We get that. But there is going to be a certain point in time when Mike Tyson is going to be where he is, and then you're going to have somebody that people are going to look up to as a fighter. Okay? And that fighter eventually will be Deontay Wilder. Why? Because there was a following for Deontay Wilder at that particular point where he was one of the biggest fighters, if not the biggest fighter in the sport. Because when
was that time? Because I must have missed it.
We have instances where a good number of people got into the sport because of Deontay Wilder. When Deontay Wilder won the WBC Heavyweight Championship in 2015, he was the first American heavyweight champion in a long time. And just because of that, that garnered some interest in him as far as him being able to fight and defend the WBC title. He was able to defend the WBC title multiple times up until the point where he lost against Tyson Fury. But he was able to bring in an audience that many of the current fighters weren't able to do, particularly because he was American, because he was heavyweight, and because he was a black man. And those three things kind of factor out as far as him being a marketable fighter and being a marketable person. And later on down the line, people are going to recognize him for what he did in the sport. And that really can't be disputed.
They've been saying that about, Muhammad Ali for years. Someone's going to come along and wash away his status. Here it is. No one's washed away status. They've been saying that about Sugar Ray Robinson. No one's washed away his status. They've been saying that about Sugar Ray Leonard. No one's washed away his status. You want to know why? Because of talent and legacy. It ain't just the talent, but is who they beat, and is also how they beat them. Deontay Wilder has nothing to actually back that up and stand with.
How many title defenses did Tyson have? How many consecutive title defenses did Tyson have?
Hold on. That is debatable because we've had other fighters that have been long-time
It's
world
not
champions
debatable
in the
when he
heavyweight
fought C
division.
competition. No,
In
it's
the
not. He
in
fought
the
C
heavy.
competition.
Hold on. There have been other heavyweight champions that have been longtime champions in the division where their opponents have been criticized over their title reign. No
Mike Tyson
different
being
than
one of them.
So, and I'm talking about guys that we know that are legends in the sport, like Mike Tyson, like Larry Holmes, like Vladimir Klitschko.
When you have over 50
So-
fights, of course you're gonna have some people on there that we don't know. But those that you beat and how you beat them, those are the ones that made you the legend in the first place. You will never hear the word legend put next to Wilder's name because he did nothing to earn it.
How many consecutive title
Nothing.
defenses did Tyson have? Does anyone know that? How many
I
consecutive?
can't answer that question, but what? Yes, Wilder beat.
That's what I'm asking the
Wilder
panel, Troy.
defended his title 10 times. Can you tell me? The other top 5 fighter that he beat in his title run? In his title reign, besides
here's the
Tyson
thing.
Fury. Please.
We could go back and forth in the schedule for Deontay Wilder and Mike Tyson and all of these other heavyweights, whatever. But the thing about it is that one, you can't take away that Deontay Wilder was a world heavyweight champion. Number 2, you can't take away that he was able to defend that title for a good amount of years, and that's that. So whatever, you're gonna have your stance. You're gonna have your stance on Deontay Wilder, and other people are gonna have their stances on Deontay Wilder. And further,
Did Tyson beat any of the great heavyweights of his era?
Hold on, what?
It's a simple question, right? Did Tyson beat any of the other great heavyweights of his era? Yes or no?
Yes.
Who?
There was a guy named Spinks that was considered great. He beat him. Both of them were 0-0. Yes, he did. But here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. No, hold on. Here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. Here's the difference. Tyson fought. Tyson fought the great heavyweights of his era.
Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury.
Ooh, one. Where was the Joshua fight? Where was the Klitschko fight? Where was the White fight? Where was the Walter Parker fight?
Where was the Riddick Bowe fight?
Where's the Chisora fight?
Where was the Riddick?
Where was all those fights?
Oh my God! This dude said Chisora. Did he beat Riddick?
I did.
No. Did he fight?
Yes,
Riddick
I
Bowe?
did.
No. Did he beat Evander Holyfield? No.
He didn't fight. He didn't fight Riddick Bowe. No. But he fought him though. He fought him. Tyson has one top 5. Wilder has one top 5 in his whole career, and he got beat the hell up twice.
He fought Luis Ortiz in the top 5,
and he got gifted a job. He's a top 5, bro. He's a top 5. He's a top 5 where?
He was in the top 5 when Wilder beat him.
What makes him a top 5?
Too.
The fact that he
was ranked in the top 5. You talking about what
makes him a top 5? Because he beat Brian Jennings. So did 3 other people.
The rankings had him in the top 5, bro.
Mm-hmm.
The rankings had him in the top 5. No matter how you want to take
top 5.
it.
All right.
He's not no top 5.
Let me say something. Deontay Wilder, man. First of all, there's a piggyback with the boxing source said. He said, we didn't care about the heavyweight division for a long time. Let's just be honest. Klitschko reigned for almost 10 years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Because he was boring.
No, I get that. But it wasn't no excitement. He had skills, didn't he? And when Wilder came, he started getting these knockouts. People started talking about skills. When we watch heavyweight boxing, it's always been about knockouts. Yes, you want to see skills.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Hold on, Troy.
Okay.
Knockouts sell. And that's what people watch these heavyweights fights for. When Mike Tyson was getting knockouts, they show his highlight reel. They wasn't talking about skills. He was getting knockout highlight reels. That's why he was fighting nobodies on pay-per-view. Correct me if I'm wrong. The same thing Tank Davis is doing today because of his knockouts. He's producing knockouts. That's what sells. It's never changed. But the point I'm getting at is Wilder brought interest. I've seen kids at Wendy's, 15, 16-year-old, talking about Deontay Wilder. Me being a fan of the sport was happy to see that transition because we didn't have people caring about the heavyweight division at all. That's my point. Wilder definitely plays a big part. I'm happy that he's actually been a part of this, this boxing, this generation, this era. I'm actually happy that I witnessed that. He's actually like a Bible story when you really think about it. A guy most people said didn't have that much skill set, but he became a bronze medalist and he defended his title 10 times. You can't even matchmake heavyweights like that. You can't even get most heavyweights to get 40-0 with 39 knockouts. You can't even do that. Like, people try to make it like it's so easy to do, but every heavyweight can't do that. So,
which is why I said his docuseries is going to be amazing. When they actually do make his movie, it's going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
All right. So, all right. So now we're gonna move forward.
You know, Troy wanted to say one hating word.
I wanted to get in the thing for the co-feature bout that was at the at Las Vegas, and that was thing with Gary Antoine Russell and Victor Postol there at 140 pounds. It was like a version of a world, well, not a world title, but like a regional title on the line, even though it was a 10-round bout. Gary Antoine Russell, undefeated, was able to get a stoppage victory over Victor Postol. Some people, pretty much may have said that, they just stopped it just to say that, Gary Antoine Russell stopped him. I thought, there were times where he was doing pretty well in that particular bout. In the first few rounds, he was, going at Victor Postol, throwing the right jab or pawing out the right jab and then coming in with the left hand to the body. I thought that was pretty strategic. Sometimes, when you try to throw your power hand, you usually go upstairs. But the thing about it is, with depending on the fighter that you fight, they might be able to see that punch coming if it comes upstairs and be able to move out of the way. But you can't really move the body all too much. So going after the body initially was a pretty good strategy there from Gary Antoine Russell. But, by around like the fourth round, you kind of like seen Victor Postol have a little bit more success with his jabs and with a couple of his power shots while Gary Russell Jr. was coming in. Because there were times when Gary Antoine Russell wasn't throwing that jab and he was leaving himself open to the shots coming from Victor Postol. But then, you said, the adjustments there from Gary Antoine was able to move around the ring better. He didn't have the reach advantage that, Victor Postol had, but with him being more active, that kind of like was good on his part. And then, for me, I think it was around like the 8th and 9th round, you kind of seen him turn up, his activity. And in the 10th round, pretty much when the 10th round started, he started to, really blitz Victor Postol. And, even though Victor Postol really wasn't, seriously hurt or anything like that, he wasn't throwing much back, which, kind of like forced referee to step in. But, the thing about it is that, I do feel like, Gary Antoine, does have to work on a few things a little bit. That's what I was trying to see in this particular matchup was, okay, we know that he is very talented. He has a lot of skill from an offensive standpoint. But I want to see what he's able to do from a defensive standpoint. Is he able to, keep his right hand up while he's, coming in with the left after throwing the right jab, or, try to, come in with both hands up and try to, come forward. But he does like have those instances where he like drops his guard a little bit, and he ends up getting himself hit. So I got to see if he's gonna make that adjustment to like do something more to like move his head a little bit more. I know that there were times when he kind of like did kind of judge the distance well against Victor Postol, even though, like I said, Victor Postol had the reach advantage. There were some times when Postol threw out his jab, he wasn't really in range to land on Gary Antoine Russell. But there were other times when, if Gary Antoine Russell was close enough that he was, getting caught a little bit there. And I thought that, he did get hit with a few power shots, but he was able to take those. but there was like at one point either in like the 6th or the 8th round where Gary Antoine Russell landed up to like 6 left hands, and you know I thought that he was like really going to, seriously take him out at that particular point. But Victor Postol ate every single one of those punches. And there was like one punch where it was like a clear, like, left hook or left hand that really like cracked Victor Postol. And Victor Postol was able to take that shot like almost nothing. But I mean, still ended up being a stoppage victory for Gary Antoine Russell. This, kind of like puts him in the rankings there for the WBA. We'll see like where he ends up in the WBA. And, I think that, given what happened with Josh Taylor announcing that he's given up all of those belts to move up to 147, it's going to be a question as to, where Gary Antoine Russell factors in to the world title race. Like I said, it'll be there in the WBA rankings, but you got a 140-pound division that's pretty stacked or very stacked, like we were discussing earlier. There, Marcus naming all those, and we kind of like ran through like 4 or 5 potential fights that could happen in 140 that didn't even involve Gary Antoine Russell at that point, but. I got to see what is going to be next for Gary Antoine. Hopefully I could get him on, not get him on the show, but, get an interview with him later on down the line to speak about, what how his performance was and, what he could do later on down the line. But, Gary Antoine, was doing, pretty well there. I think that he really didn't like lose more than like 2 rounds or probably just didn't have 2 rounds scored against him over the course of that particular fight. But, it's just something there where he gets a win over former world champion in Victor Postol and, multi-time, title challenger to, other fighters there before he had lost to Terrence Crawford years back. So I'd say that was good there for Gary Antoine. Any thoughts on his performance there last night?
I thought he did good. I mean, you pointed out some stuff to where the whole time I ain't a fearful person, but I felt sort of fearful for him, the way that he sort of enters into the space. He reminded me of Sean Porter, and what I had in my mind was the Sean Porter versus Terrence Crawford. The ducking come in, and then pow, and then you fall on your knee. It just that I got that in my mind with the way that he enters into the space. Mm-hmm. So for his sake, I hope that he does either improve how he enters into the space, or maybe use more of like the infighting or the hand fighting to alleviate that space, like, because it's like no man's land when he sort of enters into that space,
right?
And I was just looking at it, and I'm just like, damn, this man could potentially hit him. But I mean, other than that, obviously he wanted the stoppage. They could have let Victor Postol run around the ring for 30 more seconds and he just get a unanimous decision win. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the only thing I'm just fearful for him when he does step up to elite competition where people can hurt him, that he get hit. His potential to get hit is there, and to get hit clean. So We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was, open to like right hand counters before he would be able to throw his left. And the thing is like you gotta be able to, like I said, you gotta come in better when you're throwing in your left, or when you're trying to come into the inside, because you're gonna have that open spot where people could, see, okay, if you're going to be throwing that left hand, I could just, position in and try to get you on the inside, or I could move, or if I see you trying to come forward and try to get in with the left hand, I'm going to move over to my right, shift over to my right, and then catch you, and if you're coming in with, too much emphasis, your balance could be compromised. And, it don't even have to be that powerful of a shot. All you could do is just step off to the side and throw the right hand, and you could have him tripping. And hey, he could go down to one knee, or he could, go down to the canvas. I mean, it's happened to a few people, that way. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, hopefully he does, work on those things a little bit and improves. Troy, you did like say that, he could fight, but he does get prone to being hit with a lot of shots. You could expound on that.
Yeah, he does. I mean, all you had to do was, you saw his face after the fight last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you saw his eyes were swollen up and everything. He's a talented guy. I mean, but again, he's somebody else who needs to work on that defense. And now he's 15-0, 15 knockouts. You cannot live off that. You cannot live off that because you get outboxed. You could fight somebody else that could punch, and if you keep getting hit, hey, it'll be a short night. All you have to do is ask Chris Colbert. When I saw his face and stuff last night, if I didn't know he won, I would have thought that he lost because his eyes were all swollen up and everything. I don't understand with these fighters where they don't tighten up their defense, man. And this guy here is not even a big puncher. He's a boxer, and he's slowing down, so you should be able to see his punches coming because you were the younger man, right? But obviously, he just figured, well, I could take two of his to land, one of mine or something, right? That ain't the mindset to have. You can't live off your speed. Obviously, you can't live off your power because some people tried to live off their speed their whole career and finished on their face. And I'm just going on mute after that.
Now, like you were saying, there's a few things that you're gonna have to add to your repertoire in order to have the upper hand against some fighters that might even have the speed or have the defense to get out of what you're going to be doing against them. I mean, Victor Poso, like I said, had the reach advantage, but yeah, he was 38 years old. So he was very limited. I've said, for a while, as talented as Gary Antoine Russell is, I find one particular fighter that's there at 140 that I say, hey, like he might have to watch out if he ends up facing this guy, and that's Subriel Matias. I think that Matias is someone that is there that has improved each fight that he's had, and he's on the brink of fighting for a world title. Like I said, Josh Taylor moving up, all of those titles are vacant. And Subriel Matias is the top guy, pretty much the top guy there in the IBF rankings. So he's soon to fight for a world title there. And, Subriel Matias is somebody that, has improved on his boxing skill, and he's always had that power. So I'm thinking like if you're somebody that's prone to getting hit and you're going to be going up against guys that could crack, yeah, you're gonna have to do something in order to like get your hands up or move your head or something like that in order to have a better approach against fighters like that. I know that there's a few other guys that could, that have some pop in their punch there at 140. It's a very deep division, like we said, man. I mean, even with, Montana Love, you got Cepeda, you got Ramirez, you got, all those other guys, you got even Jack Catterall. So there's like a few, fighters that are out there that you got to be able to watch out for. Hey, I mean, hey, maybe, like you were saying, Jack Catterall might be one of those guys that may want to face Gary Antoine Russell. Given that Jack Catterall kind of like fought Josh Taylor like he was hungry. It was almost like, how George Kambosos fought Teofimo Lopez. Like a lot of people favored Teofimo Lopez, but they just underestimated that George Kambosos was hungry and said, look, I'm coming in there to fight. I'm coming in there to win. I'm coming in there to show that I am actually a better boxer than you. And so Jack Catterall pretty much like showed that against Josh Taylor, and, going off that momentum, maybe he could just say, hey, listen, I'm a better boxer than you. What are you going to do if you're not going to be able to, kind of like see what I'm doing with my movements, my jabs, with me being consistent with my jab, and you're gonna. And once again, if you had that fight, Catterall versus Gary Antoine Russell, Southpaw versus Southpaw, how would Antoine Russell, react to fighting another Southpaw? That would be something else to look at too. So I gotta see, Gary Antoine Russell. Yeah, he's undefeated. Yeah, he has all of those stoppage victories. But like you said, I mean, there's still a few things that he has to improve on here. Before we really kind of like crown him as the guy there at 140 pounds at this particular point. Boxing Academic, you got anything on Gary Antoine Russell there?
Oh, I pretty much said it. Well, I said I was, about him coming into that space. I think it's Ohio turn.
Yeah, I think Marcus there. You want to add some on?
Yeah, y'all pretty much nailed it, man. I think he's ready for the top, man. Beating Victor Posto, he did get touched up. I mean, it comes with part of the territory, but he did. Victor pushed him a little bit. He made him work a little bit, man, to think about what he was doing in there, and that's what comes with fighting experienced guys that's former world champions. Once you get past that, I mean, I think he can definitely work on certain things. What fighter don't? I would like to see him up there with the top guys, man. Some of these contenders. It's time. I think I would like to see it. But I just in the top 15. Somebody up there in the top 15. Like, it would definitely be good to see that and push him, because it's only so long you can just keep, baby walking these guys, man. So
well, yeah, but at this particular point here with Gary Antoine Russell, like you're facing guys like a Victor Post, so you face the guys there at that particular level that you can only go up from there, so thing about it is like, yeah, maybe you face like a Jack Catterall. Maybe you face like Regis Progress. Like Troy is saying, I don't know, man. Regis, I don't know what in the world Regis is doing at this particular point.
Me either.
But like I said, with all of those guys there, the Cepedas, the Ramirez, the Jack Catteralls, the Subrio Matiases, all of those contenders there.
Richardson too. I would like to see
Richardson Hitchens, yeah.
Richardson Hitchens would be a good fight for him. That would
be a very good fight.
That'd be the fight right there.
So it would be very interesting to see where he's going to be at for this next particular fight that he's going to have. He kind of like says that he wants to, fight 3 or 4 times in the year. So I mean, here you got in February, you might see him back in May or June or something like that. But maybe he'll have like some type of a fight that's within the rankings, depending on where he's going to be at in the WBA, to kind of like see, okay, maybe he'll get to a point where he could move up in the WBA rankings or whatever rankings he's going to be at come next month. And then after that, then you'll see, like I said, with the world title situation, that maybe he could eventually fight for a world title, a vacant world title. Or, maybe he ends up being a challenger later on down the line, late in 2022 or 2023. So we'll see how that goes there for Gary Antoine Russell right there. But, that's, mostly what I wanted to cover here in this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I thank everyone for joining in here in this live conversation. We do have this thing available on iTunes and other podcast apps for people to listen to on demand and everything like that. So, be sure to check that out. We'll,
Boxing Source real quick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like as far as Russell, where does he go now? Who does he fight next? What do you think is a good move for him?
I have to see. Like I said, I have to see where he's going to be in the WBA rankings. He has like this, like some Continental Americas belt or something like that.
No, we'll talk from your heart. Who do you want to see him fight next? I don't go by all that stats and all that. I can't.
Titles things. Oh man. Actually, the guy. What was it? Petros Ananyan, the guy that Subir Matias just beat. I think he could face him next.
I never heard of him, but what's his style like?
Come forward style. Takes a couple to give a couple.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, somebody like that.
yeah. That ain't gonna help him with his defense, but yeah.
I mean, I know, but I like right now, as far as like these other guys, someone said like Richardson Hitchens, man, I'm like, I don't know, man. I was like, I think one person that I talked with, brother Ken Buhari of the PBC podcast, said that was among his wish list as one of those fights to see here in 2022 was Richardson Hitchens versus Gary Antoine Russell. So
Yeah.
maybe it could
Yeah,
be.
'cause that'll be a fight. That'll be a fight with two guys that don't know anything about defense. That'll be a fight. Hey, boxing academics, who you got Russell, who would you like to see him go up against next?
Antoine Russell, who would I like to see him fight?
Yes, sir.
Can I say I don't care?
You just did.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm open. I don't know. I don't know the crop. Like I honestly, I probably should follow a bit better. I wouldn't, like I'm not
all too familiar with the 140-pound division.
Right. Now, Sauce, I tell you what I'd like to see. I tell you what I like to see, for the DMV area, because it'll be huge. Him against Tank. That'll be huge, and he comes to Baltimore.
It would be.
He comes to Baltimore, fight him at a convention center, which is now like a fried chicken, whatever it is.
I wish that could be.
It's never gonna happen. I know.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. No, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, man. The quote. Yeah, man. The quote LL. Yeah, man. The quote LL. It's a fantasy. It won't come true.
Yeah. So, on that note, for the February 27, 2022 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show, we are checking out. Like I said at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit and not to hit. Not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
Peace.